When I was 17, I had a secret crush on someone. My family was poor, so I saved up for a whole year just to buy him a birthday gift. On the day my mom had the accident, I left school early, just in time to hear him chuckling to his friend. Even a third-place prize from a restaurant would be better than this junk. His friend burst out laughing and said, "I know you think it's beneath you, Ran. Just give it to me, then I could sell it for some cash to cover a few internet cafe sessions. If you want it, it's yours." Sieran tossed it to him with disgust, and his gaze happened to meet mine. At the class reunion later, I heard Sieran had been looking for me for 8 years. When our eyes met, Sieran's expression froze for a moment. The male classmate holding the watch scratched his head awkwardly and stammered, Should I return this to you?" I could see the watch in his hand was completely battered. Clearly it hadn't been treated with any care. "This watch isn't anything special, just under 1,000, but it took me almost a year to save up for it. I pinched every penny from my meal budget to get it." My gaze fell on Sieran's wrist. He was wearing a watch today. I couldn't tell what brand it was, but one thing was certain. His watch was far nicer than the one I gave him. I silently took the watch from Sieran's friend, looked at him and said slowly, "I'm sorry, I'll handle this myself." Sieran lowered his gaze, pursed his lips and remained silent. Feeling awkward, I rubbed the watch in my hand and turned to leave. When I passed the first trash can at the school gate, I made up my mind and threw the watch straight into the bin. I turned back and glanced at him. He lazily lifted his eyelids, a smirk playing on his lips, his eyes full of mockery. I froze for a moment, then lowered my gaze. How mortifying, this secret crush of mine. Little did I know then that Sieran's glance would haunt my dreams, too. When I got home, my father was sitting by the door with a cheap cigarette in his mouth, his face etched with worry. My mother wasn't there. He handed me a report stating that my mother had breast cancer. My father took a deep drag from his cigarette and said, "Treating breast cancer could cost over 100 or 200,000. Your mother and I have talked it over. We're not going through with the treatment. Your mom said she's craving my braised pork ribs. You go buy the ingredients. I'll go pick your mom up in a bit." I refused to believe it, flipping through the report over and over, my voice trembling. I said, "Is it confirmed? These things are often misdiagnosed. I'll take mom for another checkup tomorrow. It must be a mistake." I stared stubbornly at my father. My father's eyes were bloodshot as he just stared at me without saying a word. In that instant, tears started streaming down my face uncontrollably. Finally, I sobbed. "I'll quit school, use the money for mom's treatment." My father hung his head. I know my father's grief runs just as deep as mine. With my father's right leg being disabled, my mother was the only one who chose to stand by him, never looking down on him, always encouraging him, even though our family was poor. My parents shared a deep and loving bond. In middle school, all my classmates began forming their own beliefs. I asked my dad, "Dad, what do you believe in?" He didn't really understand what I meant by beliefs, so I gave him a rough explanation. Scratching his head a bit sheepishly, he said, "My belief is your mom." Later on, I found my own faith too. I want to grow up, earn money, and show my parents the world. Now my father's faith has crumbled, so has mine. I held my father's hand and said to myself, "I'm dropping out to work. We're going to Beijing to get mom treated." My father took a drag of his cigarette and stayed silent. But my mind was made up. I told Dad to bring mom home, then we'd pack our things and head to Beijing. I headed back to school by myself. Halfway there, it started to rain. Pedestrians hurried along the road, rushing to avoid the worsening rain. It was only then that I dared to cry, my tears mingling with the raindrops. By the time I reached the school, there was hardly anyone around. I reached my hand into the grimy trash bin. The foul, pungent odor kept rising as I rummaged through it multiple times, but the watch I'd thrown away was nowhere to be found. I bit my lip, wishing I could slap my past self for tossing it out. I could have gotten a few $100 for selling it. I spent hours searching, digging through every piece of trash in the bin, but the watch was nowhere to be found. I trudged home in a daze, completely dejected. The streets were nearly empty by then, and the heavy rain was starting to sting as it pelted against my skin. When I got home, my father still hadn't returned. The home that once felt so warm now just feels cold and empty to me. I waited and waited. In the end, all I got was someone rushing over to tell me, "Your parents jumped into the river that year." In my final year of high school, I lost both my parents and became an orphan. 8 years have passed, yet I still can't forget what happened that day. I sat up in bed, turned on my phone, and saw it was only 4 o'clock. I whimpered softly into the empty room. Dad, Mom, as usual. There was no response. I lowered my head. For 8 years, they never once came to see me. In my dreams, there was only Sieran, a teasing smile playing on his lips, his eyes glinting with mischief as he asked me, "Got any shame left, Shuji?" Every time I shout I still have my pride. In my dream, I jolt awake, too restless to fall back asleep. I got up and started packing. After mechanically arranging my parents' funeral, I left that place for good. I moved to a new city, working part-time while studying. Juggling work and studies made life really tough, but I couldn't let myself stop. Whenever I paused, I'd feel like crying. I went to the hospital and was diagnosed with moderate depression. The doctor said I needed someone to help me move forward from that day, but there's no one like that, after being away for 8 years. I've been wanting to go back more and more lately, to see the river where my parents jumped. I want to jump in and ask them why they were so heartless. I'm just so tired. Since I had to go back anyway, I didn't mind seeing my old classmates from back in the day, so when the class monitor asked if we were going to the reunion, I was the first to say yes. I hadn't spoken in the group chat for 8 years. I'd also deleted all my classmates, including Sieran. 5. I boarded the earliest high-speed train with a light heart. In 8 years, not a single day has felt more carefree than this moment. Gazing at the scenic views outside the window, I chatted cheerfully with the young couple seated beside me. The girl said, "You have no idea, sis. Chasing him was such a struggle. He had so many girls after him. But I persisted for 2 whole years, and now I'm taking him to meet my parents. You seem so happy too. Sis, are you also heading home? I feel like even the breeze tastes sweet on the way to see my parents." I stayed quiet for a moment, then managed a faint smile and said, "Yeah, I'm going home too, going home, to see my parents." I whispered the rest so softly that only I could hear it, but those words filled me with quiet delight. "Soon, I'll be seeing Mom and Dad." I hummed a cheerful tune the whole way. I went straight to the venue our class monitor had booked after getting off the high-speed train. 6. By the time I arrived, most people were already there. The moment I stepped in, the room fell silent. I took a seat by the door without a word to anyone. I wiped the smile off my face. The class monitor adjusted his glasses, breaking the silence. "Shuji, you're here." I nodded. Juyu, a girl who'd never gotten along with me, clicked her tongue sarcastically. "Well, if it isn't Shuji, the top student who's hardest to invite. Just looking at your face kills my appetite. I'll probably eat one less bowl of rice. Someone should warn Sieran not to bother coming today." No one ever knew why I dropped out, but they all knew about my crush on Sieran and the gifts I gave him. The girl sitting next to Juyu tugged at her sleeve. The class monitor frowned and said, "That's enough. Sieran has been searching for Shuji for 8 years. Telling him would only make him happy." Juyu chuckled and said, "Sieran is so kind-hearted. Who knew you had to apologize for not liking someone? After searching for 8 years, all he wanted was to apologize to Shuji. Is it wrong to not like someone? Everyone knows Shuji transferred schools because Sieran embarrassed her. You make it sound like Sieran actually had feelings for her. Doesn't Sieran already have someone he likes? I heard she's a perfect 10, rich, beautiful, and sophisticated. What does Shuji have going for her besides her looks, her disabled father, her dirt-poor family? Oh, come on." Juyu's words grew increasingly inappropriate, making everyone else frown. I stood up without showing any anger. "I won't be staying for dinner, so you don't need to worry about losing your appetite. I just wanted to see everyone, and now that I have, I'll be going." With those words, I pulled open the door and walked out. The class monitor chased after me, grabbing my hand with a serious expression. "Sieran really searched for you for 8 years. Aren't you going to wait for him?" Sieran's image surfaced in my mind. He was incredibly handsome, with captivating eyes, but when he looked at me, his eyes held no warmth, and a faint, mocking smile played on his lips. I shook my head and said with a smile, "I'm in a hurry. When you see him, please tell him I'm sorry for me. I'm really, so very sorry." The class monitor stood frozen in place. 7. After I left, I bought a lot of joss paper. I burned piles and piles of it in front of my parents' grave, enough to last them 100 years. After burning the joss paper, I went back home to take one last look. A layer of dust had settled over everything in the house. I didn't clean up or move anything around. I lingered by the doorway for a long while as darkness fell completely. The countryside was pitch black, so I checked my phone. It was almost 11 p.m. I hailed a cab to Jinjiang River, which lay perfectly still in the night. The occasional motorcycles passing by were all food delivery riders. Pulling my suitcase, I paused by the bridge. No one paid me any mind because I was pulling a suitcase. They all thought I was just taking a break by the bridge. Tired from walking, I waited until midnight, and not a single person passed by anymore. I left a note on my suitcase, then resolutely climbed over the railing and jumped. As I jumped, I thought I heard Xie voice, or maybe it was just my imagination. "Don't you fucking jump, Shuji." 8. Just before I blacked out, I saw Xie again in his high school uniform, leaning against the corridor railing. His jacket hung loosely on his frame, a lollipop dangling from his lips as he raised an eyebrow and smiled, saying, "Well, if it isn't the class president." I first heard about Xie back in my freshman year of high school. The girls in my class would talk about Xie every single day. Xie was impossibly handsome, with fair skin and sharply defined features. His eyes tapered at the corners, and when he smiled, there was a captivating charm to it, both rebellious and magnetic. When we were reassigned classes in sophomore year, Xie ended up in the same class as me, sitting right behind me. After class, a crowd would always gather behind me, chattering away. I'd never had so many people around me before. Feeling uncomfortable, I grabbed my already full water bottle and pretended to go refill it. In reality, I just hid by the back door. That's when I overheard them talking about me. What's our homeroom teacher thinking? He knows Rant's into pretty girls, but the only female around is the class nerd. Our teacher's ruthless. Everyone knows how many cute girls Ran dated freshman year. It's not like he's keeping Ran from girls entirely. There's always the class nerd. Honestly, Ran. I've never seen anyone as frumpy as her, who still wears those dorky square glasses. Her bangs are this thick, heavy curtain, and she's always buttoned up in her uniform like some stuffy academic. Ran, you can't possibly be into her, right? As he finished speaking, a ripple of laughter spread through the crowd. Go to hell. Those words came from Xie. His voice carried the huskiness of adolescence, yet it was remarkably pleasant. Then, he let out a soft, derisive chuckle and murmured, "Do you really think I, Xie, have such low standards?" I froze for a moment, glancing down at my faded shoes and school trousers. Suddenly feeling a pang of embarrassment, I lowered my head and didn't return to my seat until they had moved on from the topic, slipping back quietly. 9. Every time class ended, my seat was never really mine. There was a constant stream of girls coming to see Xie. Xie never turned any of them away. Later, the school added a swimming class. We had to order swimsuits, which cost 180 yuan per set. Before the bell rang, the teacher instructed me, "The class monitor will collect this money." Juyu let out a soft chuckle, raised her hand and asked, "Teacher, everyone knows Shuji's family is poor. Isn't it inappropriate to entrust the money to him?" My hands were clenched a bit too tightly. Juyu and I never got along in 10th grade, and to my surprise we ended up in the same class again in 11th grade. It's not like we had some major feud, she just couldn't stand me, plain and simple. Believing it's better to avoid unnecessary trouble, I was about to tell the teacher to just forget it. Just then, a pair of elegant hands with well-defined knuckles suddenly appeared before me. "Here you go, class rep." I looked up to see Xie gazing down at me, his captivating eyes leaving me momentarily stunned. Perhaps I had been staring too long, because the person next to Xie nudged him and quipped with a smirk, "Well, another one bites the dust." Hearing that, I snapped back to reality, only for Xie to suddenly lean in close. My pupils dilated as he flashed a roguish grin and whispered by my ear, "I know I'm handsome, but class rep, you're just not my type." I lowered my gaze, took the money from his hand, then turned to meet his eyes and nodded softly as I said, "I know." Xie was taken aback for a moment, then raised an eyebrow and said, "Good, study hard, class rep." With that, Xie straightened up and left the classroom, casually bouncing the basketball. 10. The rest of the class hadn't heard what Xie said to me, but they could tell he seemed to treat me well, so they all handed their money to me. Juyu reluctantly gave me the money, but not without a warning, Stay away from Xiaoran. Look at your family background, it's like a toad lusting after a swan's flesh. I ignored her, quietly collected all the money, then used my living expenses to pay for the swimsuit. After counting to confirm I had enough, I immediately handed it over to the teacher without delay. School had just let out at noon, and by the time I finished paying, they had almost finished eating. I took a steamed bun from my bag and started munching on it in the empty classroom. My mind was completely occupied with figuring out how to find a part-time job to cover living expenses. If I asked my parents for the money, they'd definitely give it to me, but I didn't want to. Halfway through my bun, Xiaoran walked in. He seemed slightly surprised to see me. I only glanced at him before lowering my eyes and quietly nibbling on my steamed bun. Xiaoran walked straight to his seat. Suddenly, he poked me and asked in a hoarse voice, "Finished eating, class monitor?" I stuffed the last bite of steamed bun into my mouth, turned away, and gave a silent nod. He turned sideways and lifted his uniform, revealing a large, bleeding abrasion on his waist. Tilting his head with a grin, he asked, "Could you help me apply some medicine?" Chewing the bun quickly, I nodded and murmured softly, "Okay." I walked over and crouched beside him, rummaging through the first aid kit with a furrowed brow as I asked, "Why didn't you get iodine? Rubbing alcohol stings like hell." Xiaoran chuckled softly. Real men don't fear pain. The moment Xiaoran finished speaking, I dabbed a cotton ball in alcohol and began cleaning his wound. Hiss. I lifted my gaze to meet his and retorted, "Real man." Xiaoran looked down at me, paused for a moment, then chuckled and said, "Class rep, your eyelashes are really long." His tone was completely casual, just an offhand remark, and I knew it well. I lowered my gaze, but the movements of my hands grew more forceful. Xiaoran stayed silent. But his abdominal muscles were rock hard, a clear sign he was in agony, unable to bear it any longer. Xiaoran gritted his teeth and said, "It really hurts. Be gentler." I paused mid-action and instinctively blew a soft breath toward the wound. After I finished blowing, I froze, and Xiaoran froze too. Then neither of us said another word. 11. Even after applying medicine to Xiaoran's wound, our relationship remained as distant as strangers. After class, I could even see him walking other girls back to their dorm. There's a huge tree right in front of our dorm. Xiaoran and that girl were standing under the big tree. She was really pretty, a senior in her final year of high school. She stood on her tiptoes and puckered her lips at Xiaoran, but just as he leaned down, his eyes suddenly darted in my direction. I quickly turned my head away. Xiaoran averted his gaze, then just leaned down to pinch the girl's cheek before walking off with a smile. For some reason, I always found myself paying extra attention to Xiaoran. Lying in my dorm bed, I thought it over and finally came to the conclusion that I really like his face. Just looking at him was enough for me. Later, when I happened to see Xiaoran walking with another girl, I would quickly go somewhere I couldn't see him, or I'd walk far behind, not even lifting my head. I figured this way I wouldn't offend Xiaoran. When Xiaoran got hurt again, he came to me with medicine in hand. This time it was his arm. Leaning one hand on the desk, he flashed his injured arm at me with a wink and said, "Class rep." I had just picked up the bag when I noticed the senior from 12th grade had arrived. I bolted upright from my seat and bumped my head against Xiaoran's chin. "Ouch, class rep. If you want me dead, you don't have to use your head like that. What if I end up with brain damage?" As he said this, he reached his hand toward my head. I stepped back to avoid Xiaoran's hand. Seeing the senior approaching, I hastily bowed to Xiaoran before darting off. Xiaoran remained where he was, his expression unreadable. 12. The swimsuit arrived just in time for the first period swimming class this afternoon. Everyone changed into their swimwear. I'd never worn anything so revealing before, so I threw a jacket over my swimsuit. Whoa, damn, Rance got legs for days. Hearing that voice, I turned my head to look around, then the voice spoke again, dripping with astonishment. "Holy crap. It's the class monitor." Only then did I realize they were talking about me. I nervously tugged at my clothes. My eyes met Xiaoran's, and I instinctively gave him a quick once-over. The tight swimsuit clung to his sculpted abs, revealing a classic V-shaped torso with broad shoulders tapering to a narrow waist. Though he seemed visibly irritated, I lowered my head. Of course, Xiaoran never liked me, and probably hated me watching him. During roll call, the teacher frowned at my glasses and said, "Haven't you gotten prescription swim goggles? How do you expect to swim like this?" Don't you have any common sense? Juyu chuckled and said, You're absolutely right, teacher. Her father's a cripple, her mother never even finished elementary school, and their family's so poor they can barely put food on the table. How would she know you need special goggles for swimming? While appearing to explain on my behalf, Juyu was actually laying out every detail of my family's circumstances. The teacher looked surprised, then fell silent for a moment before saying flatly, If your myopia isn't too severe, you could take off your glasses. Juyu raised her hand again. Teacher, she's a top student who reads every day, how could her myopia not be severe? At that moment, Xieran made an impatient TSK sound and said, Do you have to be so loud? Shut the hell up. Juyu flushed with embarrassment, but didn't dare talk back, lowering her head in silence. 13. The teacher didn't bring it up again. I only took my glasses off when getting in the water. With my severe nearsightedness, I kept to myself on the side, terrified of bumping into someone. Try as I might to avoid it, I ended up colliding with someone during practice, without my glasses. I couldn't even keep my eyes open underwater, so when I surfaced, the first thing that caught my eye was a set of well-defined abs. I quickly apologized. Sorry, are you okay? After apologizing, I looked up to see who it was. My eyes met a face with a faint, ambiguous smile. Class monitor. My eyes widened, and I lost my footing, plunging straight into the water. Just then, a hand yanked me up. Gasping for air, I stared at the blurry figure of Xieran, my chest heaving. Xieran leaned in closer, studying my face carefully before saying with a laugh, Class rep, do you have some kind of weird taste in aesthetics? What do you mean? What I mean is, Xieran leaned down and whispered in my ear, I take back what I said about you not being my type. I froze, my ears turning crimson almost instantly until my whole face burned with discomfort. Breaking free from his grasp, I scrambled awkwardly to the pool's edge, slipped on my trusty glasses, and let out a long, relieved sigh. After scanning the entire pool area, I realized Xieran was nowhere to be seen. The blush faded from my cheeks, and my heartbeat steadied. Don't believe him, Xieran's just teasing you. I was warning my former self, but she couldn't hear me, and I woke up. 14. I scanned the room. It was sparsely furnished, just a computer desk, a gaming chair, and a PC. My clothes had been changed, so I didn't die after all. I forced a wry smile and stumbled out of the room, only to find a girl lounging on the sofa watching TV. In my dazed state, I casually grabbed an apple from the table and started munching on it. This seemed to be her place. She must have been the one who saved me. I was just about to thank her. She stood up with a furrowed brow, her expression instantly darkening as she demanded, Who are you? And why are you in Xieran's house? I froze. What did she just say? She said this is Xieran's house. Seeing me stunned, she crossed her arms and walked up to me. Hey, I'm talking to you. What are you doing at Xieran's place? And why are you sleeping in his room? The girl's face darkened, her eyes flashing with possessiveness. I lowered my gaze and said, I don't know him, but he saved me. You're his girlfriend, right? Please thank him for me. I'll get out of your way. You'd better leave now. I walked over to the suitcase in the corner. As I stepped out, I wasn't looking and bumped straight into someone. It felt like hitting a wall. My head was throbbing. I pressed a hand to my forehead and looked up to apologize, but my pupils dilated the moment I recognized Xieran's face, and I instinctively took 2 steps back. Xieran hadn't changed much. The only difference was he'd shed his youthful aura, becoming more mature and compelling. Holding groceries in one hand, his gaze shifted to my luggage-clutching fingers as he let out a derisive chuckle. What? Planning another river dive? I met Xieran's gaze steadily this time, and murmured softly, Xieran, am I in your way? Hearing this, Xieran's expression froze for a moment. Coming back to his senses, he asked, Shuji, want to grab a bite to eat? I shook my head. No time to eat, I'm running late. Xieran lowered his gaze, his hand tightening around the grocery bag. Must you go through with this? I looked up and met Xieran's eyes with seriousness, saying, You shouldn't have saved me. I just wanted a home too. A flicker of light passed through Xieran's eyes. Then I continued, a home with my parents in it. My father's a cripple. My mother's ill. The kind of family you'd avoid at all costs is the very one I've been yearning for day and night. Xieran fell silent. 15. As I was walking away, Xieran grabbed my arm and said, Shuji, I'm getting married. I paused, let out a soft sigh, and said, Oh, really? Congratulations. Will you come to my wedding? Xieran turned to look at me. His eyes as mesmerizing as ever. Was it my presence that made your wedding perfect? I retorted. Xieran gazed at me for a long moment before parting his thin lips to utter a single word. Yes, I flashed him a smile and said cheerfully, let's do it then, no regrets. When? 1 month from now, alright. I promised Xieran and rented a place here for a month. Back in high school, I thought Xieran had feelings for me too, so I saved up for what felt like forever to buy him a watch. But it turns out it was all just wishful thinking on my part. It was an embarrassing secret crush. Now that Xieran is getting married, I'll personally put an end to my youthful infatuation and this chapter of my life. 16. Late the next night, Xieran knocked on my door. When I opened it, the strong smell of alcohol hit me. It was raining, and he was soaked to the bone. Xieran pulled me into a tight embrace, burying his face in the crook of my neck. Instantly, I felt a warm dampness spread across my skin. Xieran leaned close and whispered by my ear, Shuji, I've been searching for you for 8 years, yet you never left a single clue. Do you hate me that much? Xieran's voice carried a hint of grievance, his words slightly slurred. I turned my head away and said, Xieran, you're drunk. Xieran straightened up and produced a wristwatch. I froze for a moment. This was the watch I'd thrown in the trash years ago. I found it. Please don't throw it away again. I looked down and murmured, it's nothing valuable. You should just let it go. Xieran's breathing grew heavy as he suddenly gripped my chin, forcing me to look up. His eyes blazed with intense possessiveness. The next instant, his kiss came down hard, his voice husky and words slurred. Shuji, I regret it. I shouldn't have gotten jealous. My eyes widened in shock. Just as I tried to pull back, Xieran tightened his arm around my waist, holding me firmly against him until our bodies were pressed together. Xieran's tongue pried my lips apart, thrusting deep with relentless force as his hands pinned me in place, leaving no room for retreat. Slowly, deliberately, he saturated my senses with the scent of liquor, a burning, feverish heat. 17. That kiss I'd fantasized about all through high school was finally happening in this moment. I stared at Xieran with an impassive face, then suddenly broke into a smile and said, Xieran, sleep with me. How can anyone keep taking without giving anything in return? In high school, you teased me like I was some performing monkey. But even monkeys get tired, they need a little reward to keep going. Don't you think so, Xieran? Xieran furrowed his brow, reaching out to gently brush aside the stray hairs by my cheek as he murmured, Shuji, you're not well. Come with me to see the doctor tomorrow. All right. Xieran's tone was impossibly gentle. I tilted my head and noticed the girl following behind Xieran. In the falling rain, she stood quietly behind him. It felt unfamiliar at the time, but now I remember, she and Xieran inhabit the same social sphere. They've grown up together since childhood. However, she doesn't know me, nor is she aware of any girls connected to Xieran. 18. Ever since that swimming lesson, Xieran seems to have flipped a switch. He's always teasing me now. While we were doing exercises, Xieran leaned against the window, snatched my workbook, and quipped, still hitting the books, class rep. I stammered, the exam, it's coming up. Someone nearby said with a laugh, Ran, why do you always tease the class rep? Look, you've made her all nervous. Xieran raised an eyebrow and leaned in to look at my face, saying as he did so, let me see. I kept my head down the whole time. While playing basketball, Xieran declined the water offered by other girls with a laugh and said, sorry, but our class monitor already got water for me. Little did he know I hadn't brought any water for him. Hearing that, I immediately ran off to buy him some. During the sports meet later, Xieran brought a girl along. Throughout that time, Xieran didn't even glance my way. I saw him coaxing the girl. Where am I supposed to find an umbrella for you, princess? Can't you just soak up some sun for a bit? That girl has fair skin and is quite pretty. I silently offered her my umbrella. Without even looking at me, she said, it's way too ugly. I'm not using it. Someone else can if they want. Xieran tossed the umbrella to me and said, all right, if you say no, then no, I won't go play basketball. Okay, you won't get sunburned now, Your Highness. This was the first time I'd ever seen Xieran try to placate someone. 19. Shuji. Xieran called out to me. I snapped out of my daze and gave him a distant nod. I'll see a doctor. I promise I'll be perfectly healthy before your wedding. Xieran, don't worry, I won't ruin your wedding, you have my word, please just go. Siaran was already standing by the door. With one swift motion, I shut it, cutting off both him and that girl. Siaran pounded on the door, shouting, Shuji, Shuji. Then I heard a girl's voice, but couldn't make out the words, but Siaran didn't knock again. I took some pills and lay down on the bed. I suddenly dreamed of my parents. During the summer vacation of my sophomore year in high school, our family was harvesting rice. Juyu, wanting to embarrass me, rallied most of the class to help with the rice harvest. My parents brought out the best food to treat them. My parents didn't notice the disdain in their eyes, but I did. Siaran was the first to speak up. Uncle, this fish is delicious, it's wild caught, isn't it? My dad nodded with a smile. That's right, the river's full of them. I've got a few more in my tank that you can take home. Siaran thoroughly enjoyed the meal, and after eating, he went straight out to help harvest the grain. 20. Since he didn't know how, I taught him. He pinched my cheek with a grin and said, Shuji, you're so capable. After saying that, he quietly got to work. The others couldn't keep up after a while and started doing other things. Seeing this, I dashed to the corner store and bought a big bag of ice pops. I brought them back and handed them out to everyone. Juyu crossed her arms and said, We're working for you. The least you could do is treat us to something decent. You should be embarrassed to offer such cheap ice pops. I quickly replied, These are great for quenching your thirst. Siaran did the most work throughout the entire process. My dad kept praising him. Everyone else left one after another. But Siaran kept working until dark. Once it gets dark, the roads become difficult to travel. My dad said, Son, why don't you stay the night? I'll have Xiaoji set up a bed for you. My room was on the second floor, while Siaran made a bed for himself on the balcony. The walls were thin, and I could hear Siaran tossing and turning, unable to sleep, so I lit some mosquito-repellent incense and brought it over to him. The moment I approached him, he opened his eyes and said with a smile, What's this, trying to take advantage of me while I'm asleep? Class Rep. 21. I set down the mosquito coil, crouched beside him and asked softly, Are you in pain somewhere? Siaran was raised like a delicate flower. When had he ever done farm work? Even if he didn't say it, I knew his body must be aching. In the darkness, I couldn't make out Siaran's expression. After a moment of silence, he replied in a hoarse voice, It does hurt. I placed my hand on his arm. Let me massage it for you. Once the stiffness eases, you'll feel better. I quietly massaged Siaran's arm, noticing his body temperature was steadily rising, and asked, Are you feeling hot? He cleared his throat lightly and said, Not at all. Class Rep, you're really good at this. I'm feeling much better now. After a moment of silence, I thanked him. Siaran, thank you for today. If it weren't for you, my parents and I would still be stuck with this for days. Siaran suddenly cupped the back of my head with one hand and gently pressed me down. All I could see clearly were his eyes, burning with intensity. He asked, Can I have a kiss? I froze for a moment, but then nodded. My nod seemed to catch Siaran off guard. He released my hand and said, Just kidding. I kept my hands moving and simply murmured, Amham. 22. When senior year began, Siaran became somewhat distant toward me. I was already saving up back then, thinking it would be my way of repaying Siaran for his help. Since I had good grades, people often came to me with questions. One of them was Yu Jie, who'd approach me 7 or 8 times a day. When Siaran passed by, he remarked with a sarcastic smirk, Yu Jie, are you treating the class representative like a free tutor? Then he leaned down and said to me, Shuji, you could make a fortune with this. His tone was somewhat sarcastic. I frowned, wondering what I had done to offend him. But I didn't say a word. It wasn't until I gave Siaran the watch I'd saved up for ages to buy. That day I left early and overheard what Siaran said. Only then did I realize Siaran had never really respected me. He treated me like I was some pet to amuse himself with. They'd play with me when they were in the mood, and ignore me when they weren't. There was never any real affection. 23. After getting up, I went to the hospital. The doctor asked me, What seems to be the problem? I said, I was previously diagnosed with moderate depression. The doctor let out a long sigh and said, Moderate is still manageable. Let's run one more test. I nodded and took the examination form, but had a sudden change of heart halfway through, so I just left. The moment I stepped out of the hospital, I ran into Siaran waiting at the entrance. He walked over and asked, Did you get checked? What medication were you prescribed? I was a bit annoyed, but still lied with a smile. I've done everything. The doctor said I'm in great shape. Xiaoran furrowed his brow. Shuji, you know, when you lie, your gaze becomes unusually intense. I wiped the smile off my face and looked up to ask, Xiaoran, are you into me or something? You're always so attentive. Does your girlfriend know about this? I wouldn't have asked if I were worried about him mocking me, but his response completely caught me off guard. He lit a cigarette, took a drag, and said with a smile, yeah, I like you. Xiaoran's voice exploded right by my ear. 24. My shock lasted only a second before I replied with a light laugh. I don't like you, Xiaoran. I know, I'm pursuing you. Xiaoran stubbed out his cigarette. Then die with me, Xiaoran. I stood there waiting for Xiaoran's answer. He stared at me for so long that I lost my patience. Just as I turned away, Xiaoran's voice came from behind me, saying, okay, then, holding my hand, he asked, how do you want to die, drowning, or jumping off a building? I fell silent. You still have a wedding to attend, Xiaoran. Xiaoran seemed dead set on his stance. He let out a scornful laugh. The marriage was just a scheme to keep you around. Why would I get married? And who would I even marry? What about that girl? Are you talking about Jiang Shui? Xiaoran asked. I nodded. So that girl's name was Jiang Shui. Xiaoran rubbed his temples. She's my brother's girlfriend. Wouldn't it be inappropriate for me to make a move on her? That girl is Xiaoran's brother's girlfriend, 25. But you clearly have feelings for her. I didn't finish my sentence. Xiaoran chuckled wryly. How could I not be okay? My brother actually hit me. Since we've come this far, I might as well say it all. Last night she came to me specifically to talk me out of it. And back then, I only said those things because I was jealous. The gift you gave me, it's perfect. I felt a bit dazed, as if I saw Xiaoran from high school smiling and saying to me, class rep, this watch is really something. After clearing the air, the wall in my heart should have crumbled, but I still felt incredibly suffocated. I pushed Xiaoran away, my expression serious. But the Shuji of today is not the Shuji from back then. Just go. Xiaoran didn't leave, instead sticking to me like a shadow. I was getting impatient. You're going to ruin my chances of finding a boyfriend. All I wanted was for Xiaoran to not be around. As for a boyfriend, that was completely out of the question. But Xiaoran still shamelessly stuck by my side. Shuji, wouldn't it be nice if we both attended to you together? My face flushed slightly before I sneered. Do you even have abs anymore? What makes you think you can compete with him? Your thick skin. Xiaoran lifted his shirt, grabbed my hand and pressed it firmly against his abdomen, sliding it up and down as he rasped. Do I keep touching? I tried to pull my hand back, but Xiaoran wouldn't let me. Instead, guiding it further down, he grinned at me, leaning close to whisper in my ear. I've wanted to do this since the first time we went swimming. 26. Xiaoran's shamelessness knows no bounds. You're always by my side, dragging me to all these obscure, out-of-the-way places, but they all have one thing in common, they're places of worship. Since when did you start believing in this stuff? And my beliefs are all over the place, he chuckled and said. Well, I hope they all watch over you. I was stunned. Xiaoran pestered me for a whole year like that until I finally gave in, and we quickly got our marriage certificate. Xiaoran's parents couldn't have cared less about it. Xiaoran said to me with a laugh, I'm used to it. Since we were kids, neither of our parents ever really cared for my brother and me. They just gave us some money and put food on the table. That's when I realized Xiaoran's parents had a very troubled relationship. His father had a mistress on the side, and his mother had her own lover too. Their marriage exists in name only. They would have divorced long ago if not for the company. Fortunately, Xiaoran still had his brother, 27, after that. I spent every day happily with Xiaoran. There was plenty of laughter, but deep down I knew my illness hadn't truly improved. I went for a checkup in secret. The doctor said it's severe depression, and it's been going on for a while. I've been experiencing severe somatic symptoms, but I've been hiding it all from Xiaoran. When I woke up after unintentionally overdosing on sleeping pills, Xiaoran was keeping vigil by my bedside with red-rimmed eyes. He nuzzled my hand and whispered, Shuji, you're not allowed to die. While Xiaoran was out getting food for me, Jiang Shui showed up. She stared at me with clenched fists and let out a cold laugh, saying, Shuji, did you know Xiaoran's older brother passed away during his final year of high school? Even if you pity Xiaoran, could you please not throw your life away? He never mentioned it, I said softly. Jiang Shui turned her head. He's always thinking of you, doesn't want your pity, wants to heal you, but who's going to heal him? He's always been this foolish. At this moment, there was affection in Jiang Shui's eyes. Jiang Shui had fallen in love with Xie Ran. I looked at her and asked, "You'll help him heal, won't you?" Jiang Shui's expression turned serious as she looked me in the eye and said, "If I could have, you wouldn't have been in the picture these past 8 years. He only sees me as his sister-in-law. Shuji, you're the only one for him." 28. After hearing Jiang Shui's words, I committed myself fully to the treatment. The initial results were hardly noticeable, Xie Ran knew, but he kept it to himself. Late at night, after checking if I was sound asleep, Xie Ran kissed my forehead and whispered, "Shuji, if it gets too hard, just let go, I'll come join you." I kept my eyes shut, my eyelashes fluttering uncontrollably. Xie Ran held me close, stroking my back over and over to comfort me. That night, both Xie Ran and I seemed to have reached the same conclusion. If life is truly this unbearable, let's end it together. Just as everything was in place, I was suddenly overcome by violent nausea. The medical report confirmed I was pregnant. The fetus was already 4 weeks along. I froze, and Xie Ran froze too. At that moment, the wall around my heart seemed to suddenly crumble. I turned to share a smile with Xie Ran, and we walked home hand in hand under the setting sun. Xie Ran excitedly patted my stomach and said, "Feel like having fish for dinner, Shuji." I could almost see Dad speaking with a beaming smile, while Mom listened tenderly. I nodded gently and whispered, "Let's eat." Story 2. Sebastian has an ex-girlfriend who was in a vegetative state. Since we started dating until now, he would visit her every week, but I've never been angry or jealous. It's only because Sebastian said that as long as we'd been in love for 3 years, he'd propose to me and marry me. However, on our 3rd anniversary, instead of a proposal, I got the news that his ex-girlfriend had woken up. When I rushed to the hospital and saw Tiffany hugging Sebastian, crying and laughing, I finally dared to believe the news I just heard in the restaurant. They said Tiffany had woken up. They said they never expected that during the years she was in a vegetative state, her boyfriend had still stayed by her side, but they didn't know that the boyfriend they were talking about was already dating me for 3 years. Today, Sebastian, who was supposed to propose to me in the restaurant, was holding another woman's hand. With his back to me, he was sobbing uncontrollably. I pushed the door open and called his name softly, "Sebastian." Hearing me, Sebastian turned around abruptly, with a flash of panic and embarrassment in his eyes. "Iris, why are you here?" As soon as he said that, everyone in the room looked at me. Even Tiffany asked in a croaky voice who I was. Under my gaze, Sebastian lowered his head, looked at Tiffany, and said word by word, "The sister of a friend, she's working as my assistant. Maybe there's an urgent document for me to sign." I understood every single word Sebastian said, but I couldn't make sense of them when put together. He pulled me outside the ward, looking guilty. "I'm sorry, Iris. Tiffany just woke up. And the doctor said she can't be stimulated at all. Also, her memory is a bit muddled right now. She thinks we haven't broken up yet. So, could you help us out?" He said us, right in front of me. He referred to him and Tiffany as us. My tears slid down involuntarily. "Sebastian, do you remember today?" Someone in the room shouted for Sebastian, saying Tiffany was getting agitated again and they couldn't control her. Sebastian held my shoulders and looked at me carefully. "Iris, I know it was wrong of me not to wait for you to get off work today. You go home first. I'll come to you after I calm Tiffany down." Then he turned around and left, not even giving me a chance to finish my sentence. I stood outside the door, looking through the small window at Tiffany hugging my boyfriend tightly on the bed, while Sebastian patted her back gently, just like how he'd pat me whenever I'd act coquettish in his arms. I turned the doorknob and walked in. I wanted to tell them that Sebastian was my boyfriend now. We'd been together for 3 full years, and if it weren't for this accident, Sebastian would have proposed successfully. But before I could open my mouth, an aunt came out and pulled me away from the ward. She said she was Tiffany's mom and that she knew I was Sebastian's current girlfriend. Tiffany woke up at noon and kept asking for Sebastian. We told her she'd broken up with Sebastian, but she didn't believe us and almost fainted. That's why I called Sebastian over. The doctor said it's already a medical miracle that she woke up. She can't be stimulated even a bit. Girl, I'm begging you, don't tell her the truth, okay? Tiffany's mom had white hair all over her head. Clearly, she'd been worn out over the years because of Tiffany's illness. But I was Sebastian's girlfriend. How could I pretend to know nothing and watch him act all lovey-dovey with another woman, just as I was about to speak? A group of people pushed me into Tiffany's ward. When I accidentally fell, Sebastian happened to look over. Those people were the mutual friends of Tiffany and Sebastian. They congratulated Sebastian on finally having his girlfriend wake up after waiting for so many years. I was standing just 3 meters away from Sebastian, watching him smile and nod, watching him hold Tiffany's hand tightly, and watching him try his best to ignore my gaze. Sebastian and I had been together for 3 years. But even before we dated, I knew he had a vegetative ex-girlfriend. The two of them had been together since freshman year of university, with a very stable relationship. After graduation, Sebastian joined a big company, and Tiffany became an actress in a ballet troupe. Later, Sebastian wanted to get married, but Tiffany thought it was too early, so he had to wait. Eventually, they had an argument and broke up. A week after the breakup, Tiffany accidentally fell from the stage during rehearsal, hit her head, and became a vegetative state. The doctor said she might never wake up. Sebastian didn't say anything, but he'd visit her every week and also find time to accompany Tiffany's parents during festivals. They were each other's first loves. If it weren't for this accident, they might have gotten married and had kids smoothly. When I applied to be Sebastian's assistant, Tiffany had already been in a coma for a year. It took me another whole year to get Sebastian to notice me. Later, when I summoned the courage to confess, Sebastian was a bit surprised. "Do you know about my ex-girlfriend? Do you know I visit and accompany her every week?" I knew, of course I knew. I'd liked you since high school. I got into the same university as you for you. I watched you shine brighter and brighter in the crowd. Watched you and your girlfriend become the model couple on campus. Watched you cry your heart out when Tiffany fell into a coma. And also watched you achieve success in your career but stay alone. As long as I could be by your side, I didn't care about anything. Of course, I didn't say these words out loud. I just looked at Sebastian firmly, my eyes burning. I shook my head. The corners of Sebastian's mouth curved into a nice arc, and he wrapped his big hand around my head, pulling me into his arms. "Okay." After a pause of 1 second, he said, "Give me 3 years. Once the 3 years are up, I'll marry you." After we started dating, Sebastian was very good to me. He was gentle, considerate, and had a stable mood. He'd take me to meet his family and friends, and he'd always look at me with loving eyes. So I never doubted that we might not get married. I think I'm going crazy. I left the hospital and went to Sebastian's home, rummaging through all his drawers and cabinets, but whether it was receipts or ring boxes, I found nothing. I then rushed to his office, but still couldn't find any trace of his planned proposal. A colleague who was yawning and getting ready to leave work was surprised to see me in Sebastian's office. "Mr. Sebastian is so dedicated. Instead of staying with his newly woken up girlfriend, he's still thinking about work," the colleague said as he walked away. "No wonder Mr. Sebastian has stayed away from women all these years. He was saving himself for his vegetative girlfriend." I slumped into the chair and opened my phone. There were news everywhere about Sebastian's unwavering devotion and how he'd waited for his girlfriend to wake up. Sebastian and Tiffany got together in university. Tiffany was good at dancing and was the campus beauty, quite famous online. Sebastian was a top student. When they were together, all the classmates on campus were crazy about them. After graduation, Tiffany joined the ballet troupe, and Sebastian started his own business. Their relationship grew deeper instead of fading. More and more people were following their story online until Tiffany fell from the stage and gradually faded from the public eye, and the discussions about them online became fewer. A year later, I successfully applied to work in the company where Sebastian was, and became his secretary. I stayed by his side for another year. After Sebastian accepted my confession, because we were boss and secretary, we tacitly kept our relationship a secret. I thought that after today, we could be together openly. I moved my stuff to Sebastian's home overnight. Actually, half a year ago, he'd said he wanted me to move in with him, saying that holding me to sleep at night made him feel most at ease, but I thought having sex was one thing, and living together was another. So I refused. Sebastian was a bit disappointed but didn't force me. "Anyway, you know the key and the password. You can move in whenever you want to surprise me." The next day at the company, Another secretary of Sebastian asked me in confusion, "Did you offend Mr. Sebastian?" He specifically asked me to handle the work arrangements and contact him these days. Just this one sentence, but I couldn't figure out what the key point was. Was it that I wasn't allowed to contact him? Or was it these days? I called Sebastian frantically, but no one answered. I ran to the hospital, and Tiffany was gone too. The doctor said that Tiffany's boyfriend had checked her out of the hospital and decided to take her to a different environment to help her recover faster. I started calling my former high school classmates to ask about Sebastian's whereabouts. At first, they asked who I was. I said I was Iris. And it took them a while to remember that there was such a classmate in high school. Sebastian took Tiffany on a trip, right? He said he'd make up for the wasted years with her. They're as romantic as in an idol drama. By the way, Iris, there's a class reunion next month. Remember to come. We couldn't reach you in the past few years. After hanging up the phone, I looked around blankly, feeling extremely strange. How could Sebastian bear to go on a trip with another girl without saying a word? He was the most trustworthy person. He even kept his word to the most withdrawn me in high school. Why was he being so cruel to his soon-to-be proposed girlfriend? In high school, because no one in my family took care of me, I often wore ill-fitting clothes and sometimes didn't have enough to eat. I was often ridiculed by my classmates. So I became more and more self-abased and often huddled in the corner to study alone, and Sebastian was like a little son in the class. He was handsome, sunny, gentle, excellent in academics, and great at sports. I fell in love with him like all the other girls, but differently. While they dared to create all kinds of opportunities to talk to him, I only dared to watch him with my peripheral vision. The first interaction was when his basketball hit my head. Sebastian kept apologizing to me, asking me to forgive him, but I didn't blame him at all, so there was no need to forgive. Seeing that I didn't speak, he felt even more guilty. "How about I buy you breakfast tomorrow? What class are you in?" The joy that had just risen was extinguished by him. He didn't even know we were in the same class. At that time, the girls in the class were into wearing star-shaped hairpins, which were very pretty. I summoned the courage and said, "How about you give me a star-shaped hairpin?" I stuttered through the words. Sebastian smiled, his eyes brighter than the stars. My heartbeat drowned out everything around, including what Sebastian said, but from the shape of his mouth, I could tell he said yes. Sebastian didn't come the next day. He took 3 days off, supposedly to go take an exam. But unexpectedly, the first thing he did when he came back was to put the star-shaped hairpin in front of me. "Sorry, it's late. So, I'll give you some candy." Sebastian opened his palm, showing a handful of small candies wrapped in shiny wrappers. Those candies sweetened my whole high school. During the years I was with Sebastian, he kept every promise he made to me, whether it was postponing a meeting to go shopping with me as we'd planned long ago, or going home with me to visit the church during New Year's Day. So when he said he'd proposed to me, how could I not believe him? 1 week later, in the middle of the night, I woke up when I heard the door open. I'd been sleeping in the living room these days, just waiting to rush over as soon as there was any movement. The door opened, and it was indeed Sebastian outside. "Why are you in my home? Who let you in?" Sebastian's question extinguished the surprise I'd felt. I opened my mouth, watching Tiffany beside him affectionately holding his arm, smiling brightly, watching his eyes full of panic and annoyance. I didn't know how to explain. Suddenly, Tiffany covered her chest and gasped for air. Sebastian got visibly flustered. He grabbed my arm and yanked me out of the room. "You go first. I'll explain to you later." The door that slammed shut shattered all my expectations and fantasies. The message Sebastian sent me 5 days ago now seemed like a joke. I'm sorry. Give me time. I'll definitely give you the proposal you want." I clutched my heart. Suddenly, I really wanted to rush in and ask Sebastian if Tiffany knew about this message when he sent it. Why didn't he tell her? Was it something shameful? But was it his dirty thoughts that were shameful, or was it my shady identity? I sat outside in a daze, scenes of me and Sebastian in this place over the years flashing through my mind like a slideshow. There was the time when he was drunk and I sent him home, and he pinned me at the door, kissing me passionately. There were also the times when we carried groceries home, chatting and laughing as we opened the door. And the time when he was sick at home and I couldn't reach him, so I rushed over with medicine and porridge, worried sick. Back then, every day, I'd fantasized about the two of us going in and out of this door, growing old together, evolving from the passionate phase to a relationship of mutual support. But I'd never imagined that one day, he'd bring another woman in and kick me out. The door opened suddenly. The soft light from inside spilled out, shining on me. I was waiting with teary eyes for Sebastian to give me an explanation, but he, carrying the unconscious Tiffany, rushed past me in a panic and into the elevator. Sebastian, he didn't even see me. I followed Sebastian to the hospital and asked the nurse at the front desk what was wrong with the girl who'd just been carried in by a man. The nurse asked me what my relation to them was. Swallowing the bitterness, I said, "Friend." The nurse said Tiffany had been severely stimulated and passed out. "Your male friend said your friend who fainted was a vegetative patient who just woke up. Vegetative patients are very fragile mentally, so you must take good care of her. If she gets too much stimulation, it could be very dangerous." After coming out of the hospital and getting into the car, I couldn't hold back anymore and burst into tears. On one side, I'd lost Sebastian, whom I'd secretly loved for so long. On the other side, Tiffany might lose her life if she got more stimulation. What was I supposed to do? Just as the car started, Sebastian's call came in. I couldn't wait to answer it, but before I could adjust my emotions, I heard his merciless scolding. "Iris, I never thought you could be so vicious. You knew Tiffany couldn't be stimulated right now. Why did you do this to her?" I murmured. "What did I do? There are your things all over the house. How am I supposed to explain to Tiffany why there are things belonging to another woman in my room? This is the second time she's fainted since waking up, and it's all because of you. You're both girls. Why can't you just let her go? Do you want her to die?" I couldn't hear Sebastian's words clearly. All I saw was a blank in front of my eyes. When I woke up again, I was lying in a hospital bed. It turned out that the white light was from the high beams of the oncoming truck. I didn't avoid it in time and crashed head-on. Fortunately, neither car was going fast, and no one was injured. I struggled to get up and have some water. Suddenly, Sebastian appeared and helped me up. I stared at him in a daze, as if I couldn't believe my eyes. Sebastian handed me the water. "I'm sorry. You. When the nurse told me Tiffany might die, I was terrified. That's why I was so fierce." His casual apology brought tears to my eyes again. He stepped forward, grabbed my hand, and pulled my head to rest on his chest. "I'm sorry. You've been wronged these days. I was so scared when I saw you being carried out of the car. Why are you so thin now? When I picked you up, I realized you hardly weigh anything. Why can't you take good care of yourself?" Sebastian nagged at me, just like he did before Tiffany woke up, full of doting. "Sebastian, do you still keep your word? You said you'd propose to me." Sebastian's voice choked up. Yes, of course. But you have to give me time. Be good these days, take care of yourself, and trust that your husband can handle things here." "Okay." I nestled in Sebastian's arms, feeling at ease again. I was about to say something when the ward door opened suddenly. Tiffany's mom knelt down in front of us with a thud. "Sebastian, I beg you not to stimulate Tiffany anymore. It wasn't easy for her to wake up. If something else happens, her dad and I really won't be able to live." She crawled on her knees to my bedside. "Girl, I know you must be a kind girl, otherwise, Sebastian wouldn't have fallen for you. Please, for the sake of kindness, don't look for Sebastian for now. I swear to God, when my daughter fully recovers, I'll take her away and give Sebastian back to you. If I lie, let God strike me dead. Please." Tiffany's mom was crying and snotting, kowtowing non-stop. It was as if she was kowtowing not on the floor, but on my morality and conscience. I wanted to say that Sebastian was mine in the first place. You took him away from me. I held onto the hands I hadn't held for days, looking at Sebastian eagerly, seeing the tangle and pain in his eyes. Finally, I saw him make up his mind, let go of my hand again, and help Tiffany's mom up. "Auntie, don't be like this, I'll come with you." When they reached the door, Sebastian glanced back at me without saying a word. I looked at my empty palm, then at the quiet ward. Everything that had just happened was like a dream. I couldn't find Sebastian anymore. I called him once, sent him a text, and went to his home once. The property management told me he hadn't been back. Whether he was hiding on his own or because Tiffany's mom begged him to, I didn't know. But the result was obvious. I held my phone, looking at the chat records in the high school classmates group. They said Sebastian was going to bring Tiffany to this class reunion. The doctor suggested that taking Tiffany to meet more people and participate in healthy social activities would help with her psychological recovery, so Sebastian had sent a lot of red envelopes in the group early on, hoping everyone would be more active and Tiffany would have a good time, everyone wasing Sebastian's generosity while admiring his infatuation. Sebastian accepted all the compliments. I thought it was time to let go of Sebastian. Since my admiration for him started in high school, I'd go back to high school to cut off everything. I arrived at the reunion venue early, wearing my high school uniform. At first, no one recognized me. When they heard my name, they were even more shocked and widened their eyes. I understood, after all. I was very plain in high school, didn't expect you to be so beautiful now. I just smiled with my lips pursed and picked the most corner seat. Just as I sat down, Sebastian and Tiffany entered. Holding hands, the classmates, just as they'd rehearsed in the group in advance, surrounded them enthusiastically. Tiffany had a great personality, was beautiful and approachable, and quickly got along with the classmates. Sebastian brought a lot of precious red wine that he'd been collecting for years. As the bottles were opened one by one, the air was filled with the smell of alcohol. When the atmosphere was at its most harmonious, Tiffany asked, "Did Sebastian date anyone in high school?" Everyone laughed, and Sebastian affectionately tapped her on the nose. Someone who reacted quickly immediately said, "Our top student only had studies and homework in mind. Otherwise, how could he get into University A and meet you, sister-in-law?" Tiffany was satisfied with this answer but continued to ask, "Then, there must have been many girls chasing him, right? Were there a lot of girls around him?" "Not many, not many." The classmates waved their hands. He ignored everyone. When girls sent him letters, he politely refused. Besides, he was as perfect as the moon in the sky. Who would dare to pester him? Tiffany nestled into Sebastian's arms. Amused, I watched as Sebastian tilted his body towards her so that she could lean more comfortably. His hands didn't stop, patiently and carefully peeling grape skins. No, there was one. A boy suddenly sat up on the couch, his face flushed. Clearly, he'd had too much to drink. Arshan always treated her the best. "Sister-in-law, you really found the right guy in Sebastian. He's kind and righteous." At that time, seeing that the girl's family was poor, he sent her breakfast for a long time. When he saw her pencil case was broken, he even bought her a new one. Even at the college entrance examination mobilization meeting, when no one paid attention to her, Sebastian took the initiative to get everyone to write words of encouragement for her. Tiffany pursed her lips slightly and pinched Sebastian's arm gently. "Really, so considerate," the man continued. "That's why I say Sebastian is kind. He helped her so much but didn't even know who that girl was." The atmosphere in the private room gradually quieted down. Tiffany asked, "How do you know Sebastian didn't know her name?" The man laughed. "Sebastian. Do you remember Iris?" Sebastian's face stiffened. This usually calm man was a bit nervous at this moment. Not really." The man continued to laugh. "Your kind act made her secretly love you for 3 whole years. Her thick diary was full of your name. Someone told him to shut up." He waved his hand. "Relying on the alcohol. She's not here. She was ugly and plain. Who would think of inviting her? Otherwise, think about it now, if anyone can remember what she looked like." "I'll do a handstand and drink toilet water right away." Under the gaze of the few classmates who knew I was coming to the reunion, I took off my hat and stood up. "I'm Iris, I'm here. Go drink the toilet water." I walked straight towards Sebastian. As his pupils trembled violently, I slowly said, "Mr. Sebastian, can you remember me? In sophomore year of high school, I asked you which university you wanted to go to. You said University A. I said, if I also got into it, could we keep in touch in the future? You said yes." Later, when I saw you again, you already had Tiffany by your side, so I didn't approach. The next time we met was 4 years ago, at the interview for Shin's secretary group. You said I was excellent and hired me on the spot. You thought I was just an ordinary interviewee, but you didn't know that it took me 5 years to see you again. A year later, you accepted my confession. You said, after 3 years of dating, "Shut up." Sebastian interrupted me in a flustered and angry way. "You'd marry me." But unfortunately, on the 3rd anniversary, Sebastian threw a wine glass filled with red wine at me. The red wine was cold, but not as cold as his eyes. Tiffany woke up, and you went to her. "Get out, get out." Sebastian came to push me, but Tiffany stopped him. "Let her finish." Since Tiffany woke up a month ago, as your girlfriend, I've had to live in the shadows like a mistress. I couldn't show up in front of you or tell others that I was your girlfriend, watching you two have happy, high-profile, and sweet interactions in front of the whole world. Sebastian, can you remember me now? The whole private room fell into a huge silence. Tiffany's face turned pale, and she stared blankly at Sebastian. Sebastian didn't dare to look at her, nor at me. So the man I'd loved for so long also had such a cowardly side. If you really can't remember, forget it. I don't care about you anymore, Sebastian. I really look down on you. Listen carefully. I don't want you anymore. I turned around and left, not wanting anyone to see me cry for Sebastian. This month, I'd been obsessively looking for him and missing him, but he pushed me away time and time again. Finally, it exhausted the remaining love I had for him. When I got downstairs, a group of people rushed out in a panic. Tiffany had fainted. Before my brain could react, someone grabbed my neck. Sebastian, with red eyes, said in a sinister tone, "Iris, if something happens to Tiffany, you'll be buried with her." Tiffany's condition was very bad. After this fainting spell, she was directly admitted to the ICU. Among the classmates who went with them, someone secretly started a live stream. Sebastian stood there motionless. When someone went to comfort him, his eyes were out of focus. Some netizens said, "I finally have a clear concept of what being in a daze means. How much love does one have to be like this? Please, God, give me a Sebastian. Sebastian is so nice. Why does Tiffany keep fainting?" A nurse friend of mine said that Tiffany has only been awake for a month but has fainted 3 times already. Rumor has it that there's a crazy stalker who's beening Sebastian for years. She thought Tiffany was dead and she could take her place, but Tiffany woke up. So she made up lies and showed up in front of them multiple times to stimulate Tiffany. So pitiful, what a vicious thing. Brothers, let's find out who she is through human flesh search. I'll deal with her. I didn't look at the following messages. Soon, there was a knock on the door, food delivery. I stiffly opened the door, and a basin of scalding hot pot soup came at me. I screamed, covered my face, and crouched down, but got even more hurt. Several people kicked me while cursing. They were standing up for Tiffany, feeling sorry for Sebastian for being so unlucky to be by me, and spurning me like a pesky sticker. My screams attracted the neighbors. They opened their doors and shouted at these people to leave, or they'd call the police. Those people left, still cursing and threatening me to behave. The neighbor shook his head and sighed. Men are so cheap. 1 second they say they love you, and the next, they turn their backs on you, since you've broken up. Just stopping, Sebastian had come to my place many times, and most of the neighbors knew him. On the way to the hospital to wash my eyes, I tried to defend myself bitterly. We didn't break up, and he told me to wait for him. That's not. The neighbors, who were elders I'd known for years, just sighed deeply when they heard my explanation. Anyway, stay away from him. The doctor said there was too much chili oil in my eyes and I needed to rest well. With no strong light stimulation for a while, he also prescribed some burn ointment and told me to apply it on time and not get it wet. The neighbor sent me home and told me to have a good rest. Don't look for Sebastian anymore. Your health is the most important thing. Also, try not to go out. I didn't go out again, but those people just wouldn't let me off. They sent me all kinds of terrifying things. After I stopped accepting any deliveries, they'd come and knock on my door again and again in the middle of the night. I was forced to pick up my phone and start following the news about Tiffany again. When I saw Sebastian's name right next to hers once more, my heart had gone numb. I only wanted to know when she'd wake up and when those people would leave me alone. Finally, I got the news that Tiffany had woken up, looking at my messy, dirty room and my sickly thin figure in the mirror, which was the result of not seeing sunlight for a long time. I laughed until tears came out. When I went out, a few neighbors were standing at the door whispering. Seeing me, one of them came up and said, You, it's not that we don't want to look after you. Those people you've attracted keep making trouble. And we can't even sleep well." Following their gaze, I saw that some unknown liquid had been splashed on my door. I hung my head weakly. "I'm sorry, I'll find time to move out." When I rushed to the hospital and saw Tiffany, who had woken up, looking quite well, at least with rosy cheeks and bright eyes, I let out a sigh of relief. It was good. As long as she was okay, those people probably wouldn't be angry anymore and wouldn't trouble me, right? But it was Tiffany who got a shock. She held an apple in her hand numbly. What happened to you? I just stared at the apple in her hand and didn't say a word. She handed the apple to me. Was it those people? Actually, you don't have to take it to heart. Some people are just so boring. They think they're heroes, but they're just toys for others to pass the time. Just cheer up. I gobbled up the apple. For the first time, I found that the apple, which I'd always hated, tasted so sweet. What did you call me here for, Sebastian? Was he really going to propose to you? Tiffany asked in a faint voice, and I could only stay silent. Sebastian had promised me that, but I couldn't find any evidence that he had planned to propose to me that day. I have nothing to do with him anymore. For any questions about him, you can just ask him directly. I was about to turn around and leave, but what Tiffany said next made me freeze. He was the one who brought up the breakup back then. But I know him so well. He actually loves me more than he thinks. I asked him, can you really fall in love with someone other than me? Guess what he said? Tiffany curled her lips, looking at me like I was a clown. Suddenly, I didn't want to hear the answer. I wasn't interested in what they'd said as a couple. Seeing that I wanted to leave, Tiffany said it before I could move. Sebastian said that as long as he could get along with someone for more than 3 years, it didn't matter who he married. It's just such a pity. You were just 1 day short of 3 years. I admit, I was enraged by Tiffany's words. You were only in a coma for 5 years, and I was with Sebastian for 3 years. What makes you so much more important? Tiffany's face suddenly turned pale, and she gasped for breath while clutching her chest. I was about to go forward when someone suddenly pulled me back. Tiffany, how are you, Iris? When are you going to stop haunting us? When Sebastian looked at me, there was intense anger in his eyes, but the moment our eyes met, it turned into shock and heartache. What happened to you? I wasn't stirred by his sudden concern. All I knew was that he'd rubbed the blister on my arm, breaking the skin. It hurt, Sebastian. Tiffany's weak call diverted Sebastian's attention, and I covered my arm and turned to leave. I was glad that the pain in my arm could cover up the pain in my heart. I found a doctor to treat my arm. The doctor gasped when he saw it. Why weren't you careful? Such a large area of broken skin is very likely to leave a scar. And your skin is so good, it'll look very conspicuous when you wear short sleeves in summer. It hurt a lot during the bandaging, but with no one to rely on, I could only bear it. Suddenly, a pair of big hands covered my eyes and pulled my head into his arms. The strong heartbeat of the man somehow made me feel at ease. Don't look. It won't hurt if you don't look. It was Sebastian. How did you get hurt? He stopped halfway through his sentence, his voice trembling uncontrollably. Who did this? He turned my head, his eyes full of eagerness and anger. If I hadn't been worried about you and followed you, how long were you going to keep this from me? I couldn't help laughing. I was wondering what identity and position Sebastian was speaking from. A friend, a colleague, an ex. But no matter which one, I didn't want to appreciate it, and I didn't need to be angry with him about my arm right now. I waited until the doctor finished bandaging before pulling away from his arms. Mr. Sebastian, your girlfriend is still waiting for you in the ward. It's inappropriate for you to be so affectionate with me, isn't it? A trace of embarrassment flashed through Sebastian's eyes, but he still grabbed my arm tightly. I'll take you to the police. I won't let any of those who hurt you go. After coming out of the police station, I took out 200 yuan from my bag as a thank you fee. Sebastian stared at me, snatched the money, and threw it into the air. Iris, there has to be a limit to your tantrums. I've done so much. What else do you want from me? I crouched down to pick up the money one by one and stuffed it into his pocket. I want you and I to have nothing to do with each other from now on. I'm your boyfriend. Don't you think what you're saying now really hurts my heart? Do you know how heartbroken and guilty I am seeing you hurt? I failed to protect you. In response to Sebastian, I slapped him. I used a lot of force. And a red palm print quickly appeared on his fair and delicate face. Sebastian, you disgust me. I strode away, but he hugged me from behind. I know you're angry now. You don't understand me or my intentions. I don't blame you, but can you give me some time? We've waited 10 years. What's a few more months? 3 years in high school, 4 years in university, 3 years at work, exactly 10 years. He remembered clearly, but now, hearing it from his mouth, I felt that the past 10 years were better off fed to the dogs. See that phone over there? Guess if it's filming us. Will it be uploaded online soon? If it stimulates Tiffany, are you going to commit suicide to be buried with her? Sebastian's hand suddenly withdrew. taking advantage of his days, I quickly left. When I got home, seeing the neighbors hesitating at my door, I said numbly, "I'll move out right now," as I packed my things one by one. I suddenly realized that half of my stuff was bought with Sebastian. I took a huge woven bag, trying to throw away everything related to Sebastian, but soon, the bag was full and couldn't hold any more. It turned out that getting rid of him completely wasn't that easy. When I slumped on the floor, something in my pants pocket poked me. It was a diamond ring. Only then did I realize that when Sebastian said he wanted me to wait a few more months, when his hand moved to my thigh, he wasn't trying to take advantage of me but to give me the ring. It was so ridiculous. Even the belated proposal was so sneaky. I simply packed some of my own things, left the ring under the doormat where we used to put the keys, and dragged my luggage away. Looking at the busy street, I suddenly felt extremely wretched. The boy who'd affected my emotions since high school could still turn me back into a mess with just a few light words and glances after more than 10 years. I found a nearby hotel to stay in. After sleeping for a day and a night, I decided to look for a new job on my phone. Fortunately, while I was deeply in love with Sebastian these years, I hadn't forgotten to do my job well and improve myself. Even if we dated late into the night, I'd still finish the books to read and the exercises to do. Sebastian would always say helplessly and dotingly, "Why are you so competitive? Are you afraid I won't be able to support you one day? Or are you always ready to leave me?" When it came to whether I planned to leave him, Sebastian would hold my head and force me to say I loved him and would never leave him. I said it over and over again until he fell asleep satisfied. In my heart, Sebastian was always excellent. His light was so bright that even when standing beside him, I didn't want to be completely overshadowed by his brilliance. Not long after I sent out my resume, I got several interview notices. After confirming the times, I let out a long breath. Halfway through my meal in the restaurant, some people started pointing at me while looking at their phones. I glanced over. They were watching a live stream. Sebastian and Tiffany were in it. "You're still thinking about her, Sebastian. How can you be worthy of me?" Sebastian tried to comfort her feebly. "I really made a mistake. Please don't get excited, okay? You even got your own birthday wrong. Are you kidding me? You think I don't know our birthdays are only one day apart? You used a mistress's birthday as your password. What do you take me for? Do you think I'm still confused after just waking up, so I'm easy to fool?" Tiffany's aggressiveness attracted many passers-by to watch, and then they realized that many people were recording with their phones. Sebastian's face gradually darkened. "She's not a mistress. We broke up before your accident. Tiffany, you're also a girl. Is it really okay to smear another girl's reputation like this?" Tiffany widened her eyes in disbelief. "Breaking up is normal, isn't it? We broke up so many times, and you begged for reconciliation so many times. If it weren't for my accident, we'd have gotten back together long ago. All these years, you took care of me and my parents because you still had feelings for me. As for her, she's just a toy for you to pass the time." Sebastian was so angry that his chest heaved. He said unreasonable and walked away. Just before leaving, he got a call. "Express delivery." "Okay, I'll go back right now." I stopped paying attention to the stares and comments around me and started running. That express delivery was sent by me to Sebastian. What I sent was my high school crush diary. It was the evening rush hour, and the road was jammed. I ran all the way, just wanting to rush to Sebastian and grab the diary back. When I sent it earlier, I never thought the proposal would fail, so, full of happy anticipation, I chose to send this thing to him on my birthday, the day before his birthday. I didn't expect all the things that had happened these days, which made me completely forget about it. When I got to Sebastian's house, the light was on inside. But I knocked for a long time before he slowly opened the door. His eyes were red, as if he'd been crying. So, he loved Tiffany so much that he'd hide and cry alone. I turned my face away and stopped looking at him. "I accidentally had a courier sent here. Please give it back to me." After an unknown period of silence, I looked at Sebastian in confusion. He was holding the opened diary, the one full of my girlish feelings. I tried to snatch the diary back, but he pulled it away. If I wasn't wrong, the open page had a wet mark, as if it had just been wet. "Yours." Sebastian's eyes were deep, and I couldn't tell what he was thinking. "Yes, I'm sorry." I subconsciously wanted to apologize, since I was determined to leave him completely. This diary was no longer something that could add to our happiness. Instead, It was garbage that I wanted to bury and keep from anyone. I've read it, every single word. Sebastian's voice was very soft, but it felt very heavy on my heart. I gasped for breath. Clenching my fists, how dare you read my stuff? If there was only one person in the world who couldn't read it, it had to be Sebastian. Sebastian looked at me quietly and shed tears. There was heartache, guilt, and relief in his eyes. The emotions in his eyes were so obvious, but I couldn't understand them. Why was he showing such an expression to me, who had already broken up with him? The next second, he gently pulled me into his arms. I'm the one who should say sorry. I didn't expect that I'd let down such a simple and loving girl. I was too selfish. I only thought about how to soothe Tiffany's emotions but forgot that you were my girlfriend, the one who should be cared for and protected by me. Iris, I'm wrong. Can you give me another chance to propose to you? The last ring was prepared before. This time, I'll definitely get a better one. Okay, I didn't understand. He wanted to propose to me. But what about Tiffany? I thought this and asked it out loud. Sebastian's arms around me paused for a moment, and then he seemed to make up his mind. Since we separated that day, I've completely let go of her. All these years, caring for her and her parents was just out of old friendship. As for what she said and did after waking up, it was also at the request of her parents. I couldn't bear to see those kind old people lose their daughter. So, you don't like Tiffany? Of course not, Sebastian blurted out without hesitation. As soon as he finished speaking, Tiffany rushed over from the side. She raised her hand and slapped Sebastian twice. Sebastian, you scumbag. While they were pulling at each other, I picked up my diary that had fallen on the ground and slipped away secretly. Sebastian called me and wanted to chase me, but Tiffany clung to him so he couldn't get away. He sounded anxious, asking me to wait for him. Iris, did you hear me? Iris, of course I heard him, but there was no way I'd wait for him. 3 days later, I got the new job. I moved out of the hotel and found a new place to live near the company. Someone called me. It was my former neighbor. What's going on between you and Sebastian? He has a new girlfriend, but is still waiting for you downstairs every day. We told him you'd moved out, but he didn't believe us. He stood there from morning till night, saying he'd wait for you to come back. The new tenant wanted to move in, but he wouldn't let them. He even beat up the landlord. Old Lee couldn't take his punches and kicks. We couldn't stop him until we told him you were cyberbullied at home because of him and Tiffany and kept being harassed. Then he stopped. Poor old Lee, with a bruised face. I don't know what happened to Sebastian. Where is Sebastian? He's been arrested by the police. Why? Didn't the police contact you? I thought Sebastian didn't dare to let the police contact me. I opened the crush diary. On the page that Sebastian had teared on, I wrote about how Sebastian saved me from a school bullying. Those days, Sebastian's extra attention made some girls jealous, and they dragged me to the back of the small playground to bully me. But before it started, Sebastian, who was on duty, showed up. He was always kind and innocent, even when those girls were fiercely grabbing my clothes. He just thought we were playing around and even kindly reminded us to go back to the classroom quickly because it was going to rain soon. After he left, the girl in charge reluctantly let me go. Thanks to Sebastian, you're safe today. At the end of that page, I wrote, Sebastian is like a savior, saving me from despair again and again. He is the warmest and brightest existence in the world. It's him who makes me always believe that there is the purest beauty in this world. But now, he betrayed me, wavering between me and his ex-girlfriend, and finally even resorted to violence against an innocent old man. He is far from a savior. When I saw Sebastian again, he was waiting for me downstairs at my current company. When he saw me and was about to come forward, he just stood there, not daring to move. It was because I was arm in arm with a tall, handsome man, and our intimacy was obvious. There was no need to ask about our relationship. Sebastian finally left with a bitter smile, looking dejected. After he left, Nancy's girlfriend also drove over. They wanted to invite me out to play, but I really didn't want to be the third wheel, so I politely declined. When I got home, I finally let out a sigh of relief. Actually, I should thank Sebastian for his good upbringing. He wouldn't do anything too pushy. Half a month ago, Tiffany somehow got my contact information and sent me a long message. Basically, Tiffany was saying that Sebastian is a total scumbag. He can never figure out what's truly on his mind, always being indecisive, thinking he can handle everything perfectly. But people are selfish, and love is narrow-minded. His greed dooms him to end up with nothing. Iris. You're not the kind of docile, unambitious girl Sebastian described, nor are you the lovesick type who accepts whatever scraps are thrown your way. I know Tiffany didn't send this message entirely out of kindness for me. She lost Sebastian and couldn't accept it, yet she wouldn't stoop so low as to cling to him. At the same time,